I'm now back on my bigger screen so I can see all of you very clearly. So if you're not sure about something, raise your hands, or if you want to make a comment or contribute, like a few of you have already done very actively, then please do the same. All right. I will give you space and time to contribute and change and shift the focus of the story if you wish. Now, again, I preface this by explaining to all of you that this template is not meant for the very creative among you who can come up with amazing storylines. This is not one of those templates, okay? This template is to keep you safe, right? And safety, I already packed at high 20, low 30, right? This is what this template will achieve for you, but it won't go beyond that. If you want to go beyond that, you really need to add in some elements of creativity and some twist in your story, okay? Which I will try to incorporate here, but it will be a very minor twist, okay? It won't be a very mind-blowing one. Okay, so as I was saying, good job, everybody. And just now, Dia mentioned to us that she wanted to introduce an external conflict after the internal conflict, right? And in this case, I'm going to put the external conflict right now and then juxtapose it and connect it to my internal conflict. Okay, so the teasing and the ribbing of my brother is going to exacerbate or intensify my internal conflict. Okay, so I'm going to put them two together so that they can happen in the second paragraph. And the second paragraph can be where I develop, right, the conflict and the climax of the story. Remember, the problem gets worse, right? So the problem is, I'm afraid, right? As introduced already right in the first paragraph, right? I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what's in the box because it brings to mind like my fear of spiders. And now I'm going to exacerbate or intensify that conflict by introducing my brother as an external agent, right? An external conflict, okay? Right? Okay, so that's where we are at. Okay. The emotion that your brother would demonstrate towards you will probably need to be negative, right? Because if your brother's encouraging, right? If your brother's supportive, right? Then the story isn't as interesting. Do you all agree with me? Right? If your brother is like very nice, right? Then you actually don't have conflict lah. You have support lah, right? And usually that just becomes a recount. Okay, when you have your brother helping you, making you feel more comfortable, overcoming your fear, helping you overcome your fear, that is kind of more like a recount already. So remember, everything that can go wrong must go wrong. Okay, go big or go home, remember? Right, we talked about this in our development of the narrative, right? So try to bring in multiple points of failure in your story so there's more things to fix, okay? So snorting in contempt, my brother Alex sneered at my reaction to the box, right? Okay, I don't want to introduce too much dialogue, but here might be a good time to introduce something that he would say that will hurt me deeply, right? Okay. Okay, right. So that's the dialogue, right? I'm trying to inject that feeling of contempt, right? That sense of of shame, right? That I want my character to feel at this point in time, right? Okay. Now, at this point in time, right, I've set up the problem, but I must have a solution now. Okay. So I cannot end the story now, since I've introduced the problem. I cannot end the story with this sibling rivalry and contempt still ongoing. I have to somehow resolve it. Okay. So how do you think I might resolve this problem? Like I'm thinking ahead now, in terms of my planning. Always have a solution for your problem. So in this case, right, I have this sibling rivalry, right? How might I solve this problem? How might I make things better? and I have somebody who has not volunteered to volunteer, yeah, so that I can hear a different voice rather than Kanish, right? I appreciate Kanish, but can I have someone else?
Mr. Bhatt, can you repeat the question again?
Sure, right. So I said that whenever you introduce conflict, right, you must always have a resolution in mind. You must always have how the situation will work out in your head. You cannot introduce a conflict and not resolve it at the end of the story. Then that's a failure already. So in this case, right, what could be a resolution to this sibling rivalry? The fear is one thing, right? Okay, but the sibling rivalry, how can I solve this by the end of the story by using this structure? How do I solve it? Solomon?
Like you are very blinded by anger, and you wanted to show your brother that you're not scared of the box, and want to like go against the statement.
Okay, so proving your brother wrong, right? Proving that you actually have the courage to overcome your fears. That will be one way to resolve that sibling rivalry. So your brother now looks at you, right, with newfound respect. Okay, because you're able to overcome your fear, and that's one way, right? What else can unite two, disagreeing brothers? What else can form that unity to bind them together? Otherwise, the conflict continues, right, Nicholas?
Parents?
But do I want to introduce my parents at this stage? Because that's additional characters, right? So try to resolve the story with the characters you have introduced in the first paragraph. Again, this is another important tip. Try not to introduce additional characters once your story has gone into the second or third paragraph. Finish it with what you have started it with, okay? Kanish, go ahead.
Can it be like Alan asks Alex to try and, touch or open the box, but then Alex also gets scared. So both of them are like scared, so they tell it to their parents.
No, again, I don't want the parents to be involved. I want this to be between the two siblings. I want the story to be resolved with the characters introduced within the first paragraph, okay? Yeah. Dia?
Is it possible to have like a bribe kind of thing?
What do you mean?
Like if you do this, I will do something.
Who bribes whom?
Alex bribes Alan because Alex wants Alan to overcome his fear. So is it possible like Alan is like Alex is like, I will help you with a certain thing if you do this, or like
Possible, but in this case, right, my question is more like what will unite them? I'm not asking about further complications to the plot, right? My question is what can help to resolve the conflict between the two of them, okay? So I'm going to suggest...
the boxes gets louder.
Sorry, what?
The sounds in the boxes get louder, and then they think like if they do not take any further action, something bad might happen.
Okay, so that's escalating the conflict, but that's not the resolution. So the resolution might be something in the box, right? The content of the box will unite the two brothers. Okay, so that's kind of my plan now, right? So in this case, right, first of all, your Alan, right, will overcome his fear, right? Then Alex will look at him with newfound respect. That's one element that was suggested earlier. That's very good. Okay. The other element might be when the two boys open the box, something in the box will unite them together. Maybe if it's a puppy, it could be a shared love for the puppy, right? The both of you find it very cute, and then you resolve your differences because you now have a shared love for whatever is in the box. Do you get what I mean? Right? So at first, both of you were fearful. So it's a negative, interesting. Then both of you discover something that you both love. Then it becomes a positive, interesting. Right? So I have both ends of the spectrum, right? Positive and negative. Do you all get what I'm trying to drive at? Do you all see where it's going? Okay. So try to incorporate as much as possible within your narrative. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. Okay. So right. So my brother's words stung me to the core, right? So my reaction to his words, he had always been critical. So I'm giving a bit of background, right? I'm giving context to the relationship between the brothers, right? Always been critical, okay? Because your brother suspects that your arachnophobia is a way to get more attention, okay? That kind of thing. So is this realistic? Would y'all feel the same way, right? If you were in this situation? right? Some of you might, if you have siblings, you might feel this way, right? You know, why are you always, you know, doing this? Do you want to just get more attention from mom or something like that, right? So it is something very natural, okay? It's something that will happen between siblings, all right? Again, I remind all of you, try to introduce a second character. If you don't have any siblings, then just introduce a friend, okay, or a classmate, because that will give you a chance to write about external conflict, the conflict between two characters, okay? So now let's go on, okay? Okay, soundward, tipped over, right? So suddenly the box tipped over, just as he was about to motion to it, it suddenly tipped over. Now, what kind of reaction would that elicit with the character? It will be a shock, surprise, right? Fear, right? Okay, so that's kind of what I want to go with, okay? Okay, can you see the humor inherent in this situation, right? A boy trying to act, macho and bravado, and then suddenly, you know, he reveals the actual fear in his heart. Okay, so okay, right? So this is us resetting the scene, okay? So now both brothers are equal, right? So at first you reacted, now your brother reacted. So now you're both even, 1-1, okay? Can you all see? I'm returning the scene back to the original position. Now we are going to discover what's in the box, okay? Okay? Mm. Okay, so I'm using some cinematic techniques here, okay? Skanish, sorry, do you raise your hand?
Mr. Pang, what does inert mean?
Inert means not moving. Okay, inert means not
Inanimate.
moving, right? Okay. Any other words that you're not sure, please clarify with me, okay? The rest should be quite simple, right? Okay, swallowing a lump in your throat is usually when you are trying to overcome the fear that's in your heart. So I'm showing, not telling, okay? Edging over also shows you the caution and the fear that's inherent in a person's movement, right? So you edge over, okay? And then you want to contrast between the movement and the sounds earlier and the now silent and inert box. So there's a contrast, right? Just now the box was moving and it was like, you know, making all kinds of weird noises. Now it's totally quiet. So can you see that this is very dramatic? Is that still equally scary, but in a different way, right? So just now it was scary because it was moving and you know, it was like making weird noises, right? Now it's totally quiet, right? There's a different kind of suspenseful, like, you know, creepiness to it. So can you see I'm using the principle of contrast here, which again is one of the techniques that we covered, right? So I contrast between before and after, and now I'm trembling, right? I'm like edging, right? I'm kind of like approaching, right? So using show not tell, right? Using these vocabulary phrases to show, to see, to feel, to hear, right? Will enhance the effectiveness of your text. Okay. So first paragraph, I introduce the problem and the picture. I introduce all the characters. Second paragraph, the problem gets worse, right? Third paragraph, I go into the details, right? I go into the feelings of the characters, right? As they solve the problem. Okay, then fourth paragraph, I end the story already. Okay, so it's actually quite tight lah. The story should be quite short. Okay, of course, I'm writing a lot here, but you can write shorter. But this is the format I want all of you to follow. Okay. Yep. Right. So it's very important to note that if you follow this particular template, right, first, second, third, right, you can't go wrong. You will engage the theme and the picture from the very word go. Then you will be able to show development of that theme in the second paragraph when the problem gets worse, the problem centering around the picture, right? And then your last and two paragraphs will just be detailing and then ending, right? Tying up all the loose ends between the brothers and in their own personal conflict. Okay. So what happened next into, right? The lid first open, right? Because remember the sticker is holding it closed, right? So now they remove the sticker. Ooh, okay. Collided. Straight into my helpless, terrified brother. Okay. Okay, so why not me? Why my brother? Because again, you know, I want to emphasize the difference in state. My brother is the one that's trying to act all macho and bravado, right? So now I want him to be in that state of fear. And then I'm the bystander, and this will reconcile us. Okay, because now we are both on equal footing, right? We're both equally scared, right? And then that kind of fear is what unites us, right? As well as the adorable puppy that emerges from the box, right? Contrary to our expectations of there being scary spiders. Okay, right. Okay, right? Do you all get it? Okay, so it's kind of like a resolution, right? And there's kind of confusion, all right? Okay, so basically, this is how it ends. I know it's not the most exciting, but basically it's a resolution, right? Okay, yes, Duncan, did you raise your hand?
Mr. Pang, there is a misspelling on the last line of paragraph 3.
Yes, Ganesh?
What does enmity mean?
Enmity, you know, enemies, right? So when you convert the word enemies to a descriptive adjective, it's enmity. Enmity is how you describe being enemies with someone. The enmity between me and him. Enmity. Okay, so that's kind of like drawn from the word enemies. Okay. Now, this is not the end yet. I just need one more line to reiterate again the theme of the story. And the theme is an interesting discovery, right? So I will use the word just to end the story, right? Okay. In that moment, we shared the realization that things were often not as they seem, and that the most amazing discoveries. So I don't want interesting, I want even stronger than interesting, I want amazing, could be found in the most and I'm borrowing the unexpected place, that idea that Kanish gave us just now, expected of places. Okay, right? So this is the lesson that I learned, right? Based off of my experience. So I do a checklist. Did I include the theme of interesting discovery? Right? Yes. Do you all think so? Yes. Okay. Did I use a picture? Yes, the picture figured prominently throughout the story, right? Did I include the development of how interesting this discovery was? Yes. It was a negative interesting at first, then it became a positive interesting, yes. Because at first I thought it was going to be something threatening, and then it became something positive and cute instead, right? Did I develop the idea of how it is a discovery, right? Was there surprise? Was there an element of surprise when I saw that it was a puppy? Right, yes, right? So it ticks all the boxes, right? Again, I'm not advocating that this is the structure that you should use, but this is something you bear in mind. In the event that you are stuck, you don't know what to do. First paragraph, always begin with introducing the problem, okay? And introducing the picture that you're going to write about. The easiest way to enter in is with a dialogue. Okay, make sure you introduce all your characters in the first paragraph so you don't need to flash back again. Okay, your characters all appear and there's some backstory to them. They are students, right? They're going to school, they're in a particular setting. You can spend a brief amount of time describing the setting like I did, right? Front door of the home. But more importantly, describe the object that is the picture that you've chosen. Okay, spend more time describing suspicious box, mysterious parcel, right? The dimensions is a huge box, it tipped over, right? All of these descriptions center around the picture, right? So don't waste your descriptions on the weather when it's not relevant to the story. Use your descriptions for the object you've chosen as the main item in your story. In this case, it's a box. It could be something else, depending on which picture it is. Then in the second paragraph, right, I go into how the problem escalates and gets worse, right? So I introduce the fear, then I introduce my struggle with that fear, right? In this case, right, I didn't go too much into internal conflict. I spent a bit more time with the external conflict, right? Okay, so I just mentioned that I have this fear, but then my brother's conflict with me is the main conflict that I present in the story. That's fine, right? And he's making fun of my internal conflict, right? So my external conflict is making fun of my internal conflict, right? So that's how I connect the two of them. Okay, and then over here in the third paragraph, that's where the solution of the story presents itself. And in this case, right, I twist it because the person who is making fun of me for being scared becomes scared himself. So there's a twist. Can you see? Right, the antagonist or the bad guy becomes the victim. Right here, right? So I incorporate a minor twist, not a very major one, not very interesting, but it works, okay? And then finally at the end, right, the victim, the one who's fearful, is actually the one that opens the box and discovers the interesting object. In this case, the puppy. And the puppy serves to unite, right, the two characters who were at odds in the beginning, right? So the box that divided them becomes the box that unites them. Can you see? In the beginning, the box divided them, right? It caused the friction between them. And now what's inside the box unites them because of their shared love for the puppy. Okay? And all of this can be developed within a relatively short span of time. Okay? Again, I will flesh this out. I will indicate to you at each paragraph what are the techniques I've used. I will send you the vocabulary that's attendant to this, as well as some other suggested vocabularies you can use to develop using this template. Okay? So if you really are desperate and you cannot think of something, use this format. You cannot go wrong, right? But if you can come up with something a bit more creative, you can come up with your own twist. You want to twist the character, you want to twist the setting, you want to twist the object, you can go ahead and do that, okay? That will be more interesting. That will be more representative of your own creativity. But this is like
Mr.
defensive lah. Ken?
Mr.
At this
Pang,
stage, any questions? Yep.
how many marks would you offer for this
This one?
composition? Yeah.
Mid-30s.
Like
Mid-30s,
34?
honestly. Yeah, 34, 35. Yeah, easily.
Okay.
Of course, if there are grammar errors, then that may take away from the language lah. But if you are essentially perfect in your language and you're using phrases and vocabularies, again, please don't use something you're not familiar with. Exam is not time to try something new. Okay? Use what you're familiar with and works for you. Okay? If you are familiar with it and you're comfortable with your grammar, then it's 34, 35, right? Minimal errors, very well developed content. But it's lacking that spark. Don't you agree with me? It's not exactly the most interesting of stories, right? So in order to scale the heights to like, wow, you know, like 38, that kind of thing, you really need something quite outstanding, something quite amazing, right? So 35, 34, 35, 36 is doable. It's very easy. If you follow a certain format and you have certain elements in your story, you can't go quite wrong. But if you want to escalate even higher, of course, plus minus, a few marks, depending on subjective view of the teachers, what teachers find interesting, then you really need to twist a bit more. You need to give make your characters a bit more interesting, add some more color and detail to your characters. But if you're asking me, this is sufficient. This is really sufficient for you to score a very decent grade, right? It's safety, right? Safety. And you must also remember that, you know, sometimes you don't have time, right? But 15 minutes, you really cannot think of something, then you just go with what you feel is safe, right? It will secure you with a certain level of achievement that's accurate measurement of your language ability. Okay, you don't want to lose content because you're rushing at the end, because you spend too much time at the beginning trying to think of a spectacular story, right? That will backfire. Okay, so this is meant to secure you against that. Ken, do you have any questions? Okay, again, today's recording is in two parts. Give me a bit more time to edit it, stitch it together and then send it out to you. Then give me some time to annotate this passage so that I can show you what are the different strategies at different stages that are used. But I will send you the vocabulary list first, so you can go and study that. Okay, it will include all the phrases I use along with some other phrases that I suggest for the different settings and the different emotions that your characters experience. Okay, Ken, you do that as your homework. So I'm going to stop here. Maybe tomorrow we will do some situational writing. I don't have time to do the informal today because of the lockdown. Okay, and I don't want to keep you all too long online. Yes, Joshua, do you raise your hand?
Do we have to use the picture for the entire compo, or can we like just use it in one part of the compo?
That's a good question. Joshua, I'm going to ask you the question back. What do you think? Which one's better?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm going to ask the question back to you again. Instead of giving you the answer. You said, is it possible to just use the picture in the first part of the story or one part of the story? Or must you use the picture throughout the whole story, right? So my question back to you is, which one's better?
Using it for the whole compo?
Right? Correct? Don't you think so? Right? So if you gave me a choice, right, you're asking me can or not? Can. Anything is possible, right? But which one's better? I think because when we talk about writing, right, it's always about like polishing it, making it better, right? There's never a perfect draft, but you want to keep on improving things, right? So between draft 1, where you just talk about the story in the beginning, the picture in the beginning, and draft 2, where you include the picture throughout the story, I would say draft 2 is better. Is an improvement, because the more consistent your picture appears in the story and the more useful your picture is in the story, right, the more it demonstrates that you have considered that picture in your planning. Okay, so your picture is a recurring theme, or your picture is the recurring object that binds your story together. That's great, rather than just an incidental thing that you mentioned and then you forget about. Okay, so please try to anchor your story around the picture like I did. Okay, as you can see here, right, my entire story revolves around the box, right? The characters are in front of the box. They don't go anywhere else, right? There's nothing else happening outside. It's just focus around it. Okay, so there is power when you focus the attention of your readers on a certain scene and on a certain object. Okay, and that's why they give you the picture, to have a point of focus, right? To focus the story around something, right? The theme is an interesting discovery. The discovery is in the box, right? So I focus, that's why I chose the box, right? It's the easiest to, most possible possibilities for me to develop. The other two pictures are a little bit harder to develop because they're quite limited in scope, right? Letter's a letter, right? There's not much else you can talk about besides the fact it's a letter, but a box, I can put anything in that box. Okay, I could vary it in any way. So choose a picture that has the most potential, that allows you to develop the story the most dramatic way possible. Okay, something that makes it as interesting as possible. Okay, so between the letter and the box, I would choose the box because it's easier. Not necessarily that it's better, it's just easier. Okay, I'm sure you think about it, you can think of creative ways to use the letter or the postcard, like Dia did. Okay, but not all of us can. It's easier to go with the box. So in the exam, maybe just choose the path of least resistance, right? Because you don't have a lot of time to think and plan. Especially if it's a formal email, you spend a lot of time writing the email, you're tired, you won't have the mental bandwidth, then you want to choose something that's slightly easier, that it will give you the time to develop your language. Okay, so everything is in consideration of the time and of the energy that you have within that span. Okay, do you have any other questions? Jeanette, do you have a question? Do you raise your hand? No. Okay, that's good. Yes, Kanish, do you raise your hand? No? Okay. If not, then it's 10:20. I've exceeded by 6 minutes. I apologize. Remember, tomorrow it's optional. Okay. If you feel confident of your situational writing, you're super good with situational writing, and you don't need any help with paper 2, then you don't need to attend tomorrow's session. Okay. I leave it up to you. You all can focus on your math, science, and mother tongue. But if you want to come up with extra practice, you have questions to ask, you want to go through informal email one more time with me, then tomorrow, short session, 1 hour. We start 10. We end 11. Okay, then I will take answers and questions for paper 2. Okay, the rest of this afternoon today, if you want to ask me questions and you want to consult with me, make an appointment with me. We can do it over Zoom, or we can do it over WhatsApp or whatever. You can send the screenshots to me and I can just reply to you. Ken, I hope this is sufficient for you all. Does this put you all in a more confident position for paper 1? Does this template help you out a little bit more? I hope it does. Can you give me a nod just so that I can see whether you think it's helpful? Okay, great. Glad to hear that. Okay, thank you, everybody. That's all. Thank you. All the best for your revision. Don't overstress yourselves, okay? Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You can stay back and ask me questions if you need to, okay? I'll be here for the next 5 minutes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good job, everybody.
Bye.
Yay. Thanks for your participation. Good job. Bye. I'm going to stop the recording now, huh?